On the day of the wedding, a poor girl shows up and says to the young billionaire, "My mom said she was the one who was going to marry you. Why did you forget about her?" His reaction shocks everyone present. The sun shone with an almost ironic intensity that spring afternoon. At the Willoughby estate, everything was perfect. White flowers decorated the path to the altar. Light wooden chairs, arranged in impeccable rows, seated 300 guests dressed in pastel tones. A string orchestra played Mozart with the kind of precision only money can buy. Grant Walker adjusted his tie for the 5th time in the last 10 minutes. At 35, tall and elegant in his Italian suit, he embodied success itself. He was the chief financial officer of one of the largest tech companies in the country, having climbed every rung of his career with relentless determination. "Nervous?" asked Jack, his best man and co-worker. "I just want this to start already," Grant replied, running a hand through his perfectly trimmed hair. It was a modern fairy tale wedding, the successful businessman marrying the heiress of a fortune. Rachel Willoughby, the only daughter of Leonard Willoughby, a real estate magnate, was what society called a great catch. Intelligent, sophisticated, with an MBA from Harvard and a classic beauty. The kind of woman who perfectly complemented an ambitious man's resume. The officiant was already in place. The bridesmaids and groomsmen were lined up. The orchestra began playing the wedding march, and everyone rose to their feet. Rachel appeared at the entrance of the garden, stunning in her French designer gown. Grant smiled. It was the smile of a man who knew he was doing everything right. Marrying Rachel was not just a union. It was a merger, a strategic alliance. As she walked down the white carpet rolled over the grass, Grant allowed himself a rare moment of reflection about his past. How far he had come from the working-class neighborhood where he grew up. How different his life was now from the days when he counted coins to buy milk. Rachel reached the altar with a radiant smile. Her father handed her over to Grant with a firm grip on his arm, a gesture that said both, "Take care of her and don't waste this opportunity." The officiant began the ceremony with words about commitment and unity. The guests listened in respectful silence, champagne at the ready to be served the moment the vows were exchanged. "If there is anyone who knows of any impediment to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." The ritual phrase, which normally goes unanswered, echoed for only 2 seconds before it was broken. "My mom said she was the one who was going to marry you. Why did you forget about her?" The childlike voice, clear and strong, sliced through the air like a blade. A collective murmur spread through the rows of guests. Grant froze, his expression changing instantly. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, stood in the middle of the aisle. She wore a simple, faded blue dress and worn-out sneakers. Her brown hair, poorly combed, framed a face with delicate features. Wide, dark eyes, just like Grant's, were fixed on him with disconcerting intensity. "Who is this child?" Leonard Willoughby's voice boomed in indignation. "Security!" But Grant couldn't take his eyes off the girl. There was something about her, something both familiar and unsettling. And then he saw it. Hanging around the child's neck was a necklace, a simple silver chain with a small bird-shaped pendant. A necklace he knew well. The necklace he had given Mara Jensen 8 years ago, on the night he promised he would come back for her once he established his career, a promise he never fulfilled. "Grant," Rachel's voice sounded beside him, tense and confused. "Who is that girl? What is she talking about?" Grant opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His mind short-circuited, images from his past violently colliding with the present. Mara, the small apartment they shared, the smell of fresh coffee in the mornings, the sound of her laughter, the plans they made together, the promise of a better life. There last night, when he left to take an internship in another city. The first step toward the career he had always dreamed of. "I don't understand," he mumbled, more to himself than to Rachel. The small intruder took a few more steps forward. "My mom keeps your photo. She cries at night." "Cries at?" "She said you two were going to get married and live in a nice place." The child's words fell like stones into the calm lake of Grant's carefully constructed life. The ripples spread out, touching everyone present. Rachel looked from Grant's pale face to the girl and finally understood. Her eyes filled with tears, of anger and humiliation, not sadness. "So there's another woman." Someone from your past. Her voice grew louder, echoing through the garden. You lied to me all this time. It's not like that. It was so long ago, Grant stammered, his usual composure utterly lost. But Rachel was already removing her engagement ring, a 3-carat diamond sparkling under the sun. It's over, Grant. Don't come after me. She threw the ring against his chest and turned around. With determined steps, she walked back down the aisle, away from the altar, passing by the little girl without even looking at her. The guests began to rise, some confused, others shocked, and many already whispering among themselves. Gossip would spread like wildfire, the scandal of the year. Rachel's father advanced, furious. You'll regret this, Walker. I'll make sure of it personally. Grant barely heard the threat. His eyes were glued to the girl and the necklace she wore, that little silver bird he had once given Mara on a night of promises. He took a step toward her, extending his hand. Wait, what's your name? The girl stepped back, suddenly shy. Sadie, she answered in a low voice. Sadie Jensen. Jensen, Mara's last name, a name he had buried along with his past. Where's your mom, Sadie? His voice trembled now. Before the girl could answer, a woman appeared at the end of the aisle. Mara, older, her face lined with exhaustion but unmistakably her eyes, just like her daughter's, just like Grant's, were wide with horror. Sadie, she called, urgency in her voice. Come here right now. The girl looked at Grant one last time, with a mixture of curiosity and childlike disappointment, before running toward her mother. Mara grabbed her hand and, without even looking at Grant, turned around and disappeared, taking with her living proof of a broken promise. The garden, once the setting for a fairy tale, now resembled an emotional battlefield. The guests dispersed into groups, discussing the scandal. Rachel's family had vanished. The musicians were packing up their instruments, unsure of what to do. Grant remained motionless at the altar, still holding the engagement ring, his world crumbling around him. His meticulously planned life, his carefully orchestrated social ascent, everything lay in ruins. Yet amidst the chaos, a single question hammered in his mind. Who was that girl? Why was she wearing Mara's necklace? What had happened to the woman he'd left behind in his pursuit of a better life? What have I done? He muttered to the empty garden, his question lost in the hush of the late afternoon. Jack approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. Let's get out of here, Grant. There's nothing else to do here today. Grant nodded mechanically, letting himself be led away from the altar, but his mind was no longer there. It was with a little girl in a faded blue dress and a bird pendant running away from him. It was with Mara, the woman he had promised to love and then abandoned for a better life. It was in the past he thought he had left behind, which had now returned to demand its due. Grant woke up with a pounding headache. The empty whiskey bottle on the coffee table explained why. Sunlight poured through the windows of his penthouse apartment, revealing unusual chaos. His tie on the floor, shoes left in the middle of the room, dirty glasses. The home he always kept immaculate, like his life, now mirrored the turmoil in his mind. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face with his hands. Images from the previous day flooded back in flashes. The altar, Rachel throwing the ring at his chest, the accusing stares of the guests, and that little girl, that necklace, Mara Jensen. The name he had buried deep in his memories now echoed inside his head. Mara, with her honest smile and hands always stained with paint. Mara, who believed in him when no one else did. Mara, whom he left behind when opportunity arose. Next to the empty whiskey bottle lay his phone, 15 missed calls from his soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law, 5 from the office, 3 from Jack, none from Rachel. Grant ignored them all. There was only one person he needed to talk to. He showered quickly, threw on jeans and a simple t-shirt, clothes he rarely wore anymore. He grabbed his car keys and left. He drove without GPS. The route was etched into his memory, even after 8 years. He crossed the city from the wealthy center to the outskirts, watching the scenery change. Luxury buildings gave way to simpler structures, designer shops to local markets. He finally arrived in Hopefield, the working-class neighborhood where he'd grown up and where he'd met Mara. The streets were the same, narrow with cracked sidewalks and stubborn trees growing through the splits in the concrete. Children played on the sidewalks, enjoying the sunny Saturday. Grant parked his car, a BMW that drew attention in that area, and got out. Some people looked curiously. He felt exposed, as if everyone knew who he was and what he had done or failed to do. He walked to Maple Lane, where the small apartment he and Mara once shared stood. The same three-story building with a worn facade, narrow windows, and clothes hanging from improvised lines. His heart raced as he approached the door of apartment 302. How many times had he walked through that door, exhausted after a day's work, only to find Mara painting, her hair in a messy bun and paint smudges on her fingers. How many nights had they stayed awake in that tiny apartment, planning a future they never got to share? Grant took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Nothing. He knocked again, louder. The door opened to reveal an elderly woman he didn't recognize. "Yes?" she asked, adjusting her glasses for a better look. "Sorry, I'm looking for Mara Jensen. She used to live here." The woman frowned. "Jensen? Don't know her. I've lived here for 5 years and never heard the name." Grant thanked her and stepped back, confused. Of course Mara wouldn't still be here. Why would she be? 8 years had passed. Lives change. People move on. Just like he had. He decided to ask around. He tried the apartment next door, then the one below. Nobody knew Mara Jensen. On the third door, a middle-aged woman seemed to recognize the name. Jensen, wait, the painter. Dark hair, always had paint on her hands. Grant nodded, hopeful. "Yes, she lived here some years ago." "Oh, right. She moved over to Acacia Grove on the other side of the neighborhood. I heard she lost her apartment here but found a smaller place there, with her little daughter, you know, beautiful girl." Grant felt a tightening in his chest. Mara had a daughter, the girl from the wedding, Sadie. He thanked the woman and drove to Acacia Grove, an even more modest area than Hopefield. Buildings stood cramped together, with small businesses on the corners. The BMW seemed even more out of place there. Grant parked and asked a group of kids playing ball if they knew Mara Jensen. A boy pointed to a housing complex at the end of the street. "The painting lady?" "She lives there, Block C, apartment 12. Grant walked over, hands sweating. What would he say after so long? How would he explain his disappearance? How would he justify breaking every promise he'd made? Block C was the farthest, overlooking a small playground. As he approached, Grant noticed a girl swinging by herself, dark brown hair in a messy braid, a faded blue dress. "Sadie." He stopped, watching her from a distance. She looked so small, so fragile. She swung gently, humming a childish tune. There was something hypnotic about her, something that stopped him from going straight to apartment 12. Without much thought, Grant walked toward the playground. "Hi," he said, sitting on the swing beside her. "Remember me?" Sadie stopped humming and looked at him, her dark eyes studying his face. For a moment, Grant feared she would scream or run away. "You're the man from the wedding," she said finally. No fear in her voice, only a child's curiosity. "The one with the fancy dress." "It was a suit," Grant corrected with a slight smile. "But yes, that was me. My name is Grant. I'm Sadie. I'm 5.5. She held up 5 fingers, then another half. "Nice to meet you. Sadie, who's 5.5. What are you doing out here alone?" "Mom's painting. When she paints, she needs quiet, so I come out to play. She can see me from the window." Sadie pointed to one of the apartments in Block C, where a curtain fluttered slightly. "Your mom's a painter." "Yes, she makes beautiful paintings, but nobody buys them. It's a shame." Sadie sighed, sounding momentarily older than her 5 years. Grant felt a pang of guilt. Mara had always had talent. He'd promised to help her open a small gallery one day. "Want to see my sandcastle?" Sadie asked suddenly, jumping off the swing. Without waiting for an answer, she ran to the sandbox on the other side of the playground. Grant followed, enchanted by her energy. In the center of the box was a structure vaguely resembling a castle, with small twigs for flags. "It's lovely," Grant said, kneeling beside her. "I haven't finished the main tower," Sadie explained, starting to shape the sand. "Can you help me?" For the next half hour, Grant forgot everything: the ruined wedding, the confrontation that awaited him, the complicated life he had built. He was completely absorbed in building sand towers with a 5-year-old girl who had, without knowing it, turned his world upside down the day before. Sadie chattered non-stop as they worked. She talked about her school, how she loved drawing like her mom, about the neighbor's cat that sometimes came to visit. She never once mentioned a dad. "Hey, it's getting cold," Sadie finally remarked, rubbing her arms. "Mom said I should come inside if it got cold." "I'll walk you home," Grant offered, standing up and dusting sand off his pants. "Okay, come meet my mum. She makes the best hot chocolate in the world." Grant felt a lump in his throat, meeting Mara, as if it were the first time. They walked together to Block C. Sadie hopped over every crack in the sidewalk, holding Grant's hand without hesitation. They reached apartment 12. The door was unlocked. "Mom, I brought a friend for hot chocolate," Sadie shouted, rushing in first. Grant paused on the threshold, unable to take another step. The apartment was small, sparsely furnished but clean. A makeshift divider of colorful fabrics separated what looked like the living area from the painting space. The smell of paint and turpentine brought back memories he had suppressed for years. Sadie had already disappeared inside. Grant heard muffled voices, then footsteps approaching the door, and then there she was. Mara Jensen looked both the same and completely different from the young woman he had left 8 years ago. Her dark hair now had a few grey strands, pulled into the same messy bun he remembered. Her face, once smooth, had lines around her eyes and mouth. She wore faded jeans and a loose shirt stained with blue paint. Around her neck was a simple silver chain without the pendant. Recognition, shock, then fury crossed her eyes in quick succession. "Sadie, go to your room. Now," Mara said, her voice controlled, without taking her eyes off Grant. "But Mom, the hot chocolate." "Later. Honey, go to your room and stay there until I call." Sadie looked from Mara to Grant, confused, but obeyed. As soon as the bedroom door closed, Mara stepped forward, completely blocking his entry. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was pure ice. "Mara, No. No excuses. No explanations. What do you want, Grant? Why are you here after all these years?" "Why were you with my daughter?" Grant swallowed hard. "My daughter," she had said, "not our daughter, my daughter. I found her at the playground. She didn't know who I was. And you thought it was a good idea to approach her after what happened yesterday." So Mara knew about the wedding. Of course she did. She had sent Sadie there, hadn't she? "You sent her to the wedding?" Mara laughed, a humorless sound. "You think I knew about your wedding? That I would send my 5-year-old daughter alone to crash your big day?" She shook her head. "Is that your version? That I planned some sort of revenge? Then how—" "Sadie saw your photo in the newspaper, in the society section. Entrepreneur Grant Walker to marry heiress Rachel Willoughby. She recognized the man from the photo I keep in a drawer, the man I promised she'd meet one day. She left on her own, took a bus to get there. I nearly lost my mind trying to find her." Grant felt his blood run cold. Sadie had gone alone to the wedding. A 5-year-old crossing the city, determined to find the man from a photo. "I didn't know," he began. "You never know, do you, Grant? You never know the damage you leave behind." Mara crossed her arms. "So what do you want now? An apology? To ease your conscience?" Grant was lost for words. What did he want? Why was he here? Even he wasn't sure. "I just needed to see you, needed to know if you were okay." Mara let out a bitter laugh. 8 years, Grant. 8 years for you to wonder if I was okay, and now you show up out of nowhere. "I know I was wrong, Mara. I know I don't deserve to be here, but—" "Stop." She raised her hand. "I don't want to hear it. I don't need your apologies. I don't need anything from you. I built a life, Grant. An entire life without you. Sadie and I are fine on our own." Each word was a stab in his heart. "Mara, please, just listen to me for a minute." "Why?" "So you can tell me how happy you are now, how your rich fiancé is perfect, how it was worth leaving me behind." "It's nothing like that." Mara took a deep breath, trying to maintain control. "Go away, Grant. Go back to your life. We don't need you." She began to close the door. "Wait!" Grant held the door with his hand. The necklace. Sadie was wearing the necklace I gave you. For a moment, Mara's cold mask fell, revealing deep sadness. It was the only piece of you I had to give her. Mara touched the empty chain on her own neck. Now please, leave. This time, when she pushed the door, Grant didn't resist. He heard the click of the lock and stood there, paralyzed, staring at the worn wood. Through the other side, muffled by the closed door, he heard Sadie's voice. Mommy, why are you crying? Who was that man? Grant stepped away, each step weighing a ton. He walked back to his car in silence, his mind filled with memories and regrets. He remembered the night he left, the promises he made, Mara's hopeful face. I'll come back for you. I'll build a better life for us. Lies, or maybe not at the time. Perhaps he truly believed he would return. But then came success, promotions, a new life, and Mara faded into a distant memory he preferred to forget. Sitting in his BMW, Grant stared at the housing complex, at the windows of apartment 12. He thought about the difficult life Mara and Sadie must have had. He thought about the wealth he had accumulated, the opportunities he had enjoyed. What did any of it mean now? For the first time in years, Grant Walker faced the truth he had buried. Every rung he climbed in his brilliant career had been built on broken promises and shattered hearts. And that realization hurt more than losing Rachel, more than the scandal, more than any humiliation he might face, because it was entirely his fault, his and no one else's. Grant circled the shopping mall parking lot 3 times before making up his mind. The last time he had bought a toy for a child was last Christmas. For Jack's son, a state-of-the-art drone that cost more than many people's monthly rent. But this was different now. He didn't want to impress anyone. He just wanted to see Sadie smile. He ended up choosing an art kit with colored pencils, markers, crayons, and a large drawing pad. He remembered how Mara used to say that drawing was her way of breathing. Maybe Sadie had inherited that from her. He also bought a big brown teddy bear, large enough for hugging, and a set of building blocks. At the checkout counter, the clerk smiled. "Your daughter will love these," she commented while wrapping the gifts. Grant didn't correct her assumption. That word, daughter, stirred a strange sensation in his chest, a blend of fear and curiosity, doubt and possibility. He drove slowly back to Acacia Grove, mentally rehearsing what he would say to Mara. Last time, she had slammed the door in his face. There was a good chance that would happen again. The thought of not seeing Sadie again caused an inexplicable ache in his heart. He parked the BMW a few blocks from the complex. Maybe it was better not to draw too much attention. He took the gift bags and walked toward Block C, every step more hesitant than the last. To his surprise, he found Sadie in the same playground where he had met her 2 days before. She was playing with other children, running and laughing. For a moment, Grant just watched, feeling a twinge of envy for her carefree joy. When was the last time he allowed himself to feel that free? Sadie saw him and immediately ran over, her eyes sparkling. "Grant, you came back." There was no judgment in her voice, just pure childlike happiness at seeing a friend. Grant wondered what Mara had told her about him. "Hi, Sadie. I brought some things for you." Her eyes widened at the sight of the colorful bags. "Presents for me?" He nodded, smiling, and handed them to her. Sadie sat right there on the ground, opening them with the impatience typical of a child. Her face lit up when she saw the art kit. "Wow, look at all these colors." She opened the box right away, running her fingers reverently over each pencil. "Mom can never buy so many at once." The innocent comment made Grant shrink inside. Of course not. In 10 minutes, he had purchased more than Mara could probably afford in months. Sadie kept exploring the gifts, hugging the teddy bear tight and already planning what she would build with the blocks. Grant sat beside her on the ground, answering her questions, completely captivated by her enthusiasm. He felt a strange peace he hadn't experienced in years. After a few minutes, he sensed someone watching them. He looked up to see Mara standing under a nearby tree, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She made no move to approach, just observed. "Your mom's over there," Grant said softly to Sadie. "Do you think she'll be upset if I talk to you both?" Sadie glanced at her mother, then back at Grant, thinking, "She was sad after you left yesterday, but not mad." Sadie took his hand. "Come on, let's show her what you brought." Before Grant could protest, Sadie was already dragging him toward Mara, carrying the bear under one arm. Grant held the other bags, suddenly more nervous than at any business meeting he'd ever faced. "Mom, look what Grant brought me," Sadie exclaimed, holding up the teddy bear. "And there's a lot more. Pencils, blocks, everything." Mara kept her eyes on Grant, ignoring the gifts. "What do you think you're doing?" Grant swallowed hard. "I just wanted to do something nice for Sadie. No ulterior motives." "No ulterior motives," Mara repeated, skepticism in her voice. "Like when you promised to come back 8 years ago." "Please," Grant lowered his voice so Sadie wouldn't hear. "I just want to fix some of the damage I caused." "Fix it? With gifts?" Mara shook her head. "You think it's that simple?" "No, I know it's not. But I have to start somewhere." Something in the sincerity of his voice seemed to reach Mara. She sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "It's getting chilly out here," she said finally. "Sadie, let's go home." "Can Grant come too?" Sadie asked at once, clinging to his hand. "He can help me build the blocks." Mara and Grant locked eyes. He remained silent, leaving the decision entirely up to her. After a moment that felt like an eternity, Mara gave a reluctant nod. "Just for a while." Sadie beamed. "Come on, Grant. I'll show you my room." The apartment felt even smaller in the daylight. The living room had only a worn sofa, a small coffee table, and a tiny bookshelf with a few books. The TV was an old tube model. The walls, however, were alive with color. Paintings by Mara transforming the modest space into something vibrant. Grant recognized her style immediately. Urban landscapes in bright tones, anonymous faces captured in moments of raw emotion. The kitchen was tiny, with peeling cupboards and an oven that had seen better days. On the fridge, Sadie's drawings were pinned with colorful magnets. Sadie led him to a cramped corner that served as her bedroom, really just a section of the living room separated by a curtain, a small bed, a plastic dresser, and dozens of drawings taped to the walls. There was no space for anything else, but she didn't seem to mind, proudly showing off her little universe. "This is where I sleep and draw and play when it's raining," she explained, placing her new toys on the bed. "But if there's thunder, I sleep with Mom." Grant smiled, trying to ignore the tightness in his chest. How many thunderstorms had he missed? How many fears had he never soothed? "It's a very cool room," he said, looking at the drawings. "For you like to draw just like your mum?" Sadie nodded enthusiastically. "I'll be an artist too, Mavis, when I grow up, or an astronaut, or both." Mara appeared at the curtain's edge. "Sadie, take your toys to the living room table. There's more space out there." The girl obeyed happily, carrying her new treasures to the living room. Once she was out of earshot, Mara turned to Grant. "Don't do this." "Do what?" "Don't show up with expensive gifts and promises. Don't get her hopes up if you're just going to disappear again." Grant held her gaze. "I won't disappear, Mara. Not this time." "That's easy to say now, while the novelty hasn't worn off. But what happens when you realize our life doesn't match yours, that we have nothing to offer the big executive?" "It's not about that." "No," Mara crossed her arms. "Then what is it about Grant? Why now, after all this time?" He had no ready answer, not one that made sense even to him. "Mom, Grant, come see." Sadie's voice interrupted the tense moment. In the living room, she had already spread out the colorful blocks and begun building. Grant followed Mara over, keeping a respectful distance. Over the next few hours, a strange truce settled in. Grant sat on the floor with Sadie, helping her construct more and more elaborate block structures. Mara mostly stayed in the kitchen, making a snack and then dinner, but she kept an eye on them the whole time. Grant observed her movements, how she stretched every ingredient to the maximum, how she reused every leftover. The small apartment told a story of daily struggle, tough choices, priorities focused on survival. So different from his own life, where throwing out a shirt because of a tiny flaw was routine. "Want some juice?" Mara offered, handing him a cup, a small gesture of peace. "Thank you." Their fingers brushed as he took it, and both pulled back as though shocked. The air conditioner was broken. He realized this when he saw the small fan strategically placed in the corner. The chairs around the table didn't match, picked up or bought second-hand. The rug had stains no amount of cleaning could remove. It was a life of patches and make-do, of making the most with what was available. Yet there was something deeply dignified and genuine about the apartment. There was love in the colorful walls. There was care in Sadie's mended clothes hanging to dry. There was strength in how Mara kept everything running. "Grant, look," Sadie called, interrupting his thoughts. She had opened the art kit and was drawing something with intense concentration. Grant approached, sitting next to her at the table. The drawing showed a big castle with tall towers and a drawbridge. In front of the castle, two figures holding hands, one big, one small, clearly a woman and a girl. "Is that you and your mom?" he asked softly. Sadie nodded. "In our castle, but it's not done yet." She picked a blue pencil and began adding more details. Grant noticed Mara watching from the kitchen, an unreadable expression on her face. "Are you drawing the sky now?" he asked when he saw Sadie coloring the upper part of the paper. "No, it's the castle flag." She kept working, her tongue peeking out in concentration. After a few minutes, she stopped, looking critically at her work. "Something's missing," she said, tilting her head. "What?" Grant asked, genuinely curious. Sadie frowned thoughtfully. "A king? A king? Yeah, every princess and queen need a king in the castle." She looked at him with those large brown eyes. "But I don't know how to draw one. I've never seen a real king." The innocent comment hit Grant like a punch. He looked at Mara, who had frozen in the kitchen doorway, a flicker of pain crossing her face before she masked it again. "Well, I'm not a king," Grant said, trying to keep his voice light, "but I can try drawing one for you." He picked up a pencil and, next to the two female figures, clumsily drew a man with a crown. His artistic skills were limited, but Sadie didn't seem to mind. "Like this?" he asked, showing her the result. Sadie examined the drawing seriously, then smiled. Now the castle is complete. Something constricted in Grant's chest. A thought began to form in his mind, an idea he had avoided since he first saw Sadie. What if... The age made sense. The timing. The necklace she wore. Sadie's eyes were so much like his own when he looked in the mirror. He felt the weight of that possibility as never before. A daughter. His daughter. A child who had grown up without him, who drew castles with a missing place where a father should be. "It's getting late," Mara announced, breaking the moment. "Sadie needs a bath before bedtime." Grant nodded, standing up. "Of course, I'll be going." "No," Sadie protested, clinging to his arm. "Can't you stay a little longer, please?" "Sadie," Mara warned. "It's okay," Grant said gently, disentangling himself from Sadie's grip. "I'll come back another day if your mum allows." He looked at Mara, silently asking for permission. After a moment of hesitation, she gave a brief nod. "Promise?" Sadie insisted, staring at him intently. Grant knelt to meet her gaze. "I promise." This time he knew he would keep it. He was no longer the ambitious young man willing to sacrifice everything for success. He was a man facing the consequences of his choices, seeing clearly for the first time what truly mattered. "Can I hug you?" Sadie asked, taking him by surprise. Grant hesitated, looking to Mara for permission. She turned her gaze away, but didn't object. He opened his arms, and Sadie threw herself into them, hugging him with the casual trust only a child can give. The smell of kids' shampoo and crayons, the warmth of a small body in his arms, the sensation of holding something precious and fragile. For a brief moment, Grant felt the world stop. Everything he had built, every professional achievement, every dollar accumulated, none of it seemed important next to this simple hug. As he pulled back, he saw something shining around Sadie's neck, the bird pendant he had once given Mara on a starry night, promising freedom and a future together. A promise he had broken, a life he had abandoned, a daughter he had never known. Sadie smiled at him, unaware of the storm in his mind, and ran off to put away her new treasures. Grant stood up and faced Mara. "She's my daughter, isn't she?" The question hovered between them, heavy as lead, inevitable as the tide. Mara didn't reply immediately. Her eyes, full of memories and past pain, searched his face. "I think you already know the answer," she said at last, her voice barely above a whisper. Grant felt the weight of that truth settle on his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a responsibility he was, for the first time, willing to fully accept. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said, not as a question, but as a promise. Mara only nodded, opening the door for him to leave. As he walked back to his car, Grant felt something new growing inside him. It wasn't guilt or remorse, though both were present. It was something stronger, more primal. It was the feeling of having found a part of himself he hadn't realized was missing. 1 week. 7 full days since Grant had started visiting the small apartment in Acacia Grove regularly. 7 days of sandcastles, colorful drawings and invented stories. 7 days watching Sadie, looking for traces of himself in her innocent face. A routine had formed almost naturally. Grant arrived after work, carrying simple items, a box of ice cream, a kid's magazine, art supplies. They spent a few hours together, and then he'd leave before dinner. Mara remained distant, busy in the kitchen or pretending to read a book, always watching, always alert, like a hawk protecting its nest. Their conversations were minimal, limited to practical trivialities and arrangements. She prefers grapes, not strawberries. The coat's in the closet if it gets cold. 10 minutes, no more. Short phrases, terse instructions, none of the warmth Grant remembered from the Mara of 8 years ago. None of the easy laughter, the spirited debates about art and life, the dreams shared under the same tiny roof. On a rainy Thursday, Grant arrived earlier than usual. The office had emptied out after a cancelled meeting, and he saw no reason to stay. His priorities were shifting, rearranging within him like puzzle pieces, finally forming a coherent picture. Sadie was still at school. Mara answered the door, surprised, a paintbrush in hand and blue paint smudged on her face. "I came early," he said unnecessarily. "I can wait in the living room if you're busy." Mara hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. The apartment smelled of paint and turpentine. In the tiny space serving as her studio, an easel held an almost finished canvas, an urban night scene with city lights reflected in a puddle. "Are you still paint nighttime scenes?" Grant commented, stopping at a safe distance. Mara placed the brush in a cup of water. "Some things don't change." "It's beautiful." "It's work. A commissioned piece for a dentist's office." Grant nodded, imagining her talent reduced to decorating waiting rooms. He recalled how she once dreamed of having her art shown in major galleries, of people contemplating her works in museums. "Sadie won't be back for 2 hours, Mara said, wiping her hands on a rag. "You didn't have to come so soon." "I thought maybe," Grant hesitated, "maybe we could talk, just the two of us." Something changed in Mara's posture. She became more rigid, as though bracing for a blow. After a long moment, she nodded. "I'll make coffee." In the cramped kitchen, Grant sat at the worn table while Mara prepared the old coffee pot. Her movements were precise, efficient. She wore simple clothes, faded jeans, a loose t-shirt, hair up in a messy bun. And yet there was a natural elegance in her that time had not extinguished. Mara set 2 mugs on the table and sat across from him. The strong aroma of coffee filled the space between them. "So," Grant began, unsure of how to proceed. "You want to know about Sadie?" Mara finished for him. It wasn't a question. Grant nodded. "I've been thinking a lot. The age, the timing. You're doing math now." There was a hint of bitterness in her voice. "After all these years." "Mara, I need to know. Sadie is—" He couldn't finish the sentence, as though saying it aloud would make everything irreversibly real. Mara took a sip of coffee, her eyes never leaving his. There was a rehearsed calm about her, as if she had imagined this moment many times. "Yes," she said at last, "Sadie is your daughter." Though he had suspected it, hearing her confirmation felt like a punch to the gut. The air seemed to vanish from his lungs. His daughter. He had a daughter, a 5-year-old girl he barely knew. Why didn't you tell me? The words came out strained. Mara laughed shortly, without humor. And how would I do that, Grant? You changed your number, disappeared completely. The few letters I sent were returned. It was as if you'd died. Grant swallowed hard, remembering. The new number, purely for professional contacts. The new apartment in a better neighborhood. The conscious decision to cut ties with the past, with anyone who might remind him of where he'd come from. With Mara. I didn't know you were pregnant when I left. Neither did I. Silence. The ticking of the wall clock felt deafening. When did you find out? 2 weeks after you were gone. I took 3 tests to be sure. Mara stared into her mug as though reading memories in the dark liquid. I called the number you left. It was disconnected. Each word was another nail in his heart. Grant closed his eyes, struggling to process what he was hearing. And then? Mara lifted her gaze, a hardness in her eyes Grant had never seen before. Then I moved on. I worked 2 jobs until my 8th month. I took free prenatal classes at the community clinic. I gave birth alone, with a nurse holding my hand because I had no one else. Mara, No. She raised her hand, cutting him off. I don't want your apologies. That's not what this is about. You asked. I'm answering. Grant nodded, swallowing the words he wanted to say. Sadie was born healthy, 5 fingers on each hand, 5 toes on each foot. She cried loud as soon as she came out. The nurse said that was a good sign of strong lungs. A rare smile crossed Mara's face at the memory. She had your chin from day one, and your eyes. Grant tried to picture it, a tiny newborn, so small and fragile. His daughter, and he hadn't been there. It was hard, Mara went on. But we managed. We always managed, the 2 of us. Does she know about me? Grant asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She knows she has a father somewhere. I showed her a photo of you, the only one I kept. I told her you had to leave before she was born, but that you were a good person. Mara paused. I didn't want her growing up angry. I didn't want her feeling abandoned. Each word landed like a stone in Grant's stomach. Even after everything, Mara had protected his image in their daughter's eyes. Not for him, but for Sadie. Why did you let me get close to her now? He asked. You could have sent me away. You could have said I had no right. Mara looked out the window at the rain falling outside. It wasn't my decision. It was Sadie's. When she saw your photo in the paper, when she realized the man in the picture I kept was real, Mara took a deep breath. She became obsessed, asked about you every day. And then, after she showed up at your wedding, after you came here, I realized I couldn't protect her from this anymore. She has the right to know her father. What about my right to know I had a daughter? The question came out harsher than he intended. Mara's eyes flared. You gave up that right when you disappeared, Grant. When you decided we weren't important enough to be part of your new life. The blow landed squarely, because it was true. He had chosen. He had weighed the value of each connection, each relationship, and decided Mara did not fit into the future he was planning. I'm sorry, he said, knowing how inadequate those words were. More than I can ever say. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to her. Grant felt a knot in his throat. What do I say to her? How do I explain? You don't. Not now. She's 5 hours, Grant. She doesn't need to know all the ugly details. She just needs a dad if you're willing to be one. The question hung between them, loaded with expectations and fears. I am, Grant answered, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. I want to be part of her life. I want to be her father. Mara studied him, looking for signs of doubt or deceit. This isn't a temporary commitment. It's not something you can walk away from when you get bored or when a better opportunity arises. It's a lifetime. I know. You think you know, Mara sighed. The question is, are you ready to change your life for her, to be less than perfect, to make mistakes and keep trying? Grant had no easy answer. He had never allowed himself to be less than perfect at anything he set out to do. He had never allowed mistakes, especially his own. The thought of failing as a father terrified him. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft sound of rain on the window. She'll be home soon, Mara said finally, standing to wash her mug. If you want, you can wait for her. Or you can leave and come back another day when you're ready. Grant also rose, feeling oddly calm despite the storm inside him. I'll wait. I want to see her. Mara nodded, not looking at him. Mara, she turned. Thank you for being strong when I was weak, for raising our daughter alone when I wasn't here, for... His voice faltered. For everything. Something softened in her expression, a tiny crack in the armor she had built over the years. I didn't do it for you, Grant. I did it for her. I know. That's why I'm thankful. The door buzzer sounded, cutting the moment short. Mara went to answer, and soon Sadie's excited chatter filled the apartment. She rushed into the kitchen and stopped, surprised and delighted to see Grant. You came early today. Grant knelt, opening his arms, and she ran to him without hesitation. As he hugged her, feeling the warmth of that small body, a certainty formed in his heart. He would never leave her again, no matter the cost. Night fell over the city as Grant drove aimlessly. The streetlights reflected on the BMW's hood, forming patterns he barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, caught in a whirlwind of revelations and regrets. A daughter. He had a daughter. Sadie, 5 years old with inquisitive eyes, was part of him. His blood. His responsibility. Grant parked at a scenic overlook that offered a view of the city. From there, the lights looked like a carpet of fallen stars, a sight that usually made him reflect on all he had achieved. Tonight, however, all he could think about was what he had lost. 5 years, 5 birthdays, first steps, first words, first drawings, first day of school. Moments that would never come back. Precious instants he had traded for meetings, reports, and bank accounts. Grant pressed his forehead against the steering wheel. Mara's words echoed in his head. I worked 2 jobs until my 8th month, took free prenatal classes, gave birth alone, with a nurse holding my hand because there was no one else. While Mara struggled to raise a child alone, he celebrated promotions in expensive restaurants. While she scraped coins to buy milk, he signed million-dollar contracts. While she curled up with Sadie during storms, he slept on silk sheets in his penthouse. What have I done? He murmured to the empty car. A memory surfaced, as vivid as if it had happened yesterday. Mara, sitting on the floor of their old apartment, surrounded by unfinished canvases, laughing at something he'd said. Afternoon sunlight streaming through the window, creating a golden halo around her face. The feeling that despite all the hardships, they had something genuine and valuable. When you're a big executive, promise you'll still sit on the floor with me and eat pizza straight from the box. I promise. Some things never change, Mara. We won't change. Lies. Or maybe they weren't lies at the time. Perhaps he truly believed he could rise in life without losing his essence, without losing Mara. Another memory. The day he left. The small backpack with his few possessions. The internship at a growing company 2 hours away. The opportunity he'd worked so hard for. It's just for a little while, Mara. I'll get established and come back for you. The goodbye kiss. The bird pendant he'd placed around her neck. So you'll remember we're free, but we always come home. The necklace Sadie was wearing now. The internship turned into a job. The job brought promotions, new social circles, new friends who never would have accepted Mara with her paint-stained hands and thrift store clothes. The unspoken but conscious decision to leave the past behind, to reinvent himself, to cut ties. Grant got out of the car and walked to the edge of the overlook. The cold night wind seemed fitting for the storm inside him. He had built a life of appearances, superficial relationships, hollow achievements, a wedding that was nothing more than a merger of conveniences. And for what? So he could tally his successes in annual reports and watch numbers grow in a bank account. Meanwhile, in the small apartment in Acacia Grove, there was something real. There was Sadie, with her genuine laughter and excitement about sandcastles. There was Mara, who, despite all the pain, had taught her daughter not to hate the father who was never there. Grant took a deep breath, the cold air filling his lungs like a sudden clarity. It wasn't too late. Not entirely. Sadie was still little. There was still time to be the father she deserved, to be the man he should have been. Not everything could be fixed. Some damage was permanent, broken trust, lost years, but he could try. He could stay and face the consequences of his choices instead of running away again. For the first time in years, Grant let himself feel the full weight of his decisions, not as abstract guilt, but as concrete responsibility. The tears came unexpected and liberating, running down his face as he looked at the city lights. When he returned to the car, something had changed. There was a new resolve in his eyes, a determination born not of ambition but of something deeper. Grant picked up his phone, dozens of missed calls and messages, from the office, from Rachel demanding explanations, from acquaintances curious about the scandal. He ignored them all and dialed Jack's number. "Grant, where have you been?" "Everyone's looking for you." "I need a favor," Grant said, his voice raspy but firm. "That house you're selling on Pinewood Drive, is it still available?" "Yes, but what does that have to do with everything that's happening?" "I'm buying it. Tomorrow. Get the papers ready." "Wait, you haven't even really checked out the house. Don't you want to think this through?" "I've thought enough, Jack. It's time to act." Grant hung up and took one last look at the city skyline. That was his past, his empire of glass and steel, his hollow achievements. His future lay elsewhere. With a 5-year-old girl who drew castles, with the woman he had abandoned, who now represented his only chance at redemption. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. But for the first time in a long while, the choices he made weren't based on cold cost-benefit analysis. They were based on what his heart knew was right. Grant started the car and drove back into the city, leaving behind the man he once was. In his place, someone new emerged from the wreckage. A man ready to be a father, ready to face consequences, ready to live a life of real meaning. For Sadie, for Mara, for himself. The first week was the hardest. Grant arrived punctually at 5 in the afternoon, carrying grocery bags or tools. Mara would open the door without saying much, offering only a brief nod of thanks as he set the supplies on the small kitchen table. Sadie, however, would run to greet him with hugs and endless stories about her day at school. "Are you staying for dinner tonight?" Sadie would invariably ask, hopeful. "Another day, princess," Grant would reply, glancing at Mara, who pretended to be busy putting away the groceries. The unspoken agreement remained. He could be present, but with limits. He could bring things, but not go overboard. He could spend time with Sadie, but without creating expectations he might not fulfill. In the second week, Grant noticed a dripping faucet. "I can fix that," he offered one day, pausing the drawing session he was having with Sadie. Mara hesitated. Accepting help meant admitting a need. It meant lowering her guard, even if just a little. "It's been like that for months," she said finally. "The building super never shows up." It was permission disguised as a complaint. Grant nodded, understanding what was unspoken. While he worked under the sink, Sadie sat on the kitchen floor, watching with fascination. "Do you know how to fix everything?" she asked, handing him a wrench he had requested. Grant smiled. "Not everything, but some things. My dad was a plumber, you know. So I have a grandpa who was a plumber." Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Grant paused, caught off guard by the innocent question. He saw Mara freeze by the fridge, listening intently. "You had one," he said gently. "He's not around anymore. But he was a good man who taught me a lot, like how to fix faucets. That and never to give up on a tough problem." Mara exhaled softly, returning to whatever she was doing. Grant finished the repair and cleaned everything up. Later, when he was leaving, she murmured a nearly inaudible thanks. It wasn't much, but it was something. In the third week, he started arriving even earlier. He took Sadie to the playground before dinner. A routine formed, as fragile as a new sprout but determined to grow. One day, coming back from the park, they found Mara coughing in the kitchen, pale-faced, trying to finish making dinner. "Are you okay?" Grant asked, genuinely concerned. "Just a cold," she replied, but her raspy voice and the way she leaned on the counter told another story. "Mom's been sick since yesterday," Sadie said seriously. "She wouldn't stay in bed because she had to work." Grant noticed the stack of paintings by the door, ready for delivery. Mara couldn't afford to get sick. "Go lie down," he said firmly. I'll finish dinner and take care of Sadie. That's not necessary. It's not about necessity, Mara. It's about letting someone help. Please. Something in the quiet firmness of his voice convinced her, or maybe it was just exhaustion. Mara nodded and went to her bedroom while Grant took over the kitchen. Do you know how to make pasta? Sadie asked, skeptical. Sure. I lived alone, remember? Had to cook for myself. I thought rich people ate in restaurants every day. Grant chuckled. I wasn't always rich, Sadie. And cooking is good. It's like creating something special for people you care about. Together, they finished preparing a simple meal. Grant let Sadie help set the table, guiding her patiently. Then he carried a tray to Mara, gently knocking on her bedroom door. She was in bed, covers pulled up despite the warm apartment, looking smaller, more vulnerable without her usual defensive stance. I brought soup, he said, placing the tray on the bedside table. And these meds are good for colds. The pharmacy on the corner delivered them. Mara watched him, a silent question in her eyes. I'm not trying to buy my way back, if that's what you think, Grant said, guessing her thoughts. I just want to help. Why? Her voice was hoarse but direct. Because you're important to me, both of you. He paused. You always were. There was a moment of silence, loaded with meaning left unspoken. Thank you, Mara said at last. This time, the word was sincere, unguarded. The next morning, Grant arrived before 8. He brought breakfast and a thermometer. Mara felt better but agreed to rest one more day. He took Sadie to school, then came back to take care of the apartment. He washed the piled-up dishes, gathered the dry clothes from the line, and even scrubbed paint stains off the floor of the tiny makeshift studio. When Mara emerged from her room in the late afternoon, she found him fixing the broken window blind. You didn't have to do all this. Grant shrugged. I wanted to. Aren't you going to your job? Your office. I took a few days off, had some vacations saved up. The half-truth hovered between them. Grant didn't mention the ignored phone calls, the unanswered emails, the postponed meetings. He didn't say that his corporate world was unraveling while he chose to spend his time fixing blinds in an apartment in Acacia Grove. In the following weeks, a new pattern emerged. Grant arrived every morning to take Sadie to school. He returned in the evening with whatever was needed, basic groceries, school supplies. On weekends, he took Sadie to the park, the movies, on small outings around the city. He never flaunted his wealth, respecting Mara's dignity. He even traded the BMW for a simpler, more discreet car. His once impeccable, expensive wardrobe gave way to more casual, comfortable clothes. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't discuss the future. They lived day by day, building a new dynamic with the mortar of daily coexistence. One night, arriving after work, Grant found Mara painting in the living room while Sadie drew at her feet. It was such a domestic, natural scene that for a moment he just stood in the doorway, afraid to break the spell. "Grant!" Sadie exclaimed, seeing him. "We're doing art. Come look!" He approached, genuinely curious. On Mara's easel was a portrait coming to life. Sadie, not as a commissioned piece for a stranger, but as a personal work born from her heart. "It's beautiful," he remarked, noticing the delicate way Mara captured her daughter's essence. The curious eyes, the slight mischievous smile, the energy brimming beneath her surface. "Mom says we can hang it in the living room when it's done," Sadie said proudly. "I'm drawing us." She showed him her own artwork, where 3 stick figures, a big one, a medium one, and a small one, were holding hands in front of a house. "Who are they?" Grant asked, though he knew the answer. "Us. You, Mom, and me," Sadie explained, as if it were obvious. "In our new house." Mara and Grant exchanged glances. He saw the flicker of apprehension in her eyes, the fear that Sadie was building hopes that might be dashed. "That's a very special drawing," he said carefully. "Can I put it on the fridge?" Sadie nodded eagerly. As she returned to her coloring, Grant placed the drawing on the fridge with magnets. A simple, domestic act, as if he belonged there, as if he always had. Later, while Sadie took her bath, he helped Mara wash the brushes. "You shouldn't encourage her," Mara said quietly, referring to the drawing. "I'm not encouraging fantasies, Mara. I'm here. Really here. She looked at him for a long moment, searching for any hint of dishonesty. For how long until you get tired? Until your shiny life calls you back. My life is here now, Grant answered simply. With you two. Mara didn't reply, but something in her gaze shifted. A tension that had been there since Grant's return seemed to loosen, if only slightly. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. An entire season passed. Autumn arrived, painting the small park in Acacia Grove in golden hues. Grant still came every day, still helped however he could. The difference was that now Mara smiled more when she saw him. The tension in her shoulders eased when he was around. The small daily gestures, the morning coffee, the light bulbs changed, the homework done together at the kitchen table, formed a mosaic of normalcy none of them had believed possible. One Saturday, while Sadie napped after a busy day at the zoo, Mara and Grant sat at the kitchen table, sharing a cup of tea in a rare moment of quiet. "She asked me yesterday if you're ever going away," Mara said, staring into her mug. Grant felt his chest tighten. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That I don't know." "I'm not leaving, Mara." "You say that now. But what if you realize what it really means to stay? When you figure out it means trading your life of luxury for this?" She motioned around the small apartment. "Don't you see?" Grant asked softly. "I've already chosen. I'm already here." "Why?" The same question she had asked when she was sick, but now it carried a different weight. "Because I spent 8 years building a life that looked perfect on the outside, but was empty on the inside," he answered honestly. "Then I saw Sadie at that wedding. I saw you again, and I realized everything that truly matters is right here." Mara studied him, searching for something in his face. Whatever she saw seemed to satisfy her, at least for the moment. "She likes you a lot," she said at last. "She has your smile and your stubbornness." Grant chuckled quietly. "I thought the stubbornness was yours." For a moment, something of the old Mara, the one from before the pain and disappointments, sparkled in her eyes. Maybe a bit of both. It was almost nothing, a small acknowledgement of their shared bond through Sadie. But for Grant it meant everything. The small daily presences were taking root, slowly, deeply, persistently, and with enough patience, even the most fragile roots can support something beautiful and lasting. The idea came on a rainy night. Mara watched from the window while Grant told Sadie a bedtime story. His deep, gentle voice narrated tales of brave princesses saving entire kingdoms. Sadie listened with shining eyes, curled into his arms as if that was her natural place. 3 months had passed since Grant had begun showing up every day. 3 months of minor home repairs, shared dinners and weekend trips to the park. 3 months of a routine that, to Mara's surprise, seemed stable. But something still bothered her. An unspoken lie lingered between them. Sadie still didn't know who Grant really was. "Good night, Princess," Grant said, kissing Sadie's forehead. "Good night," she replied, hugging the teddy bear he'd brought on his first visit. "Will you be here tomorrow when I wake up?" She asked that question often, as if testing the limits of his presence. "I'll be here for breakfast," Grant promised. "Now, go to sleep." When he stepped out of her small makeshift room, he found Mara still by the window, watching the rain. "She asleep?" she asked without turning. "Almost. She's fighting off sleep so she can finish coloring." Mara smiled faintly. That was so typical of Sadie. "Grant," she began, still looking at the rainy night. "We need to tell her." He didn't ask, "Tell her what?" He knew exactly what Mara meant. "Are you sure? I thought we wanted to wait a bit longer, see if you'd stick around." Mara finally turned. There was no accusation in her voice this time, just weariness. "It's been 3 months. You're still here. And I'm staying. Then she deserves to know. It's not fair to keep it from her." Grant nodded, settling on the worn couch. Part of him feared this inevitable conversation. He was afraid of Sadie's rejection, her anger, afraid to lose the simple, uncomplicated bond they had built. "How do we tell her?" he asked at last. "I'll talk to her tomorrow while you're at work. It'll be easier for her to process on her own. without feeling pressured. What if she gets angry? Mara sat beside him, leaving a careful space between them. She probably will. She has every right. We both kept this from her. Do you think she'll hate me? The vulnerability in Grant's voice caught Mara off guard. The confident man she once knew, the successful executive who never showed uncertainty, looked genuinely terrified at the thought of losing a child's love. Not for long, Mara said honestly. Kids have an incredible capacity to forgive, especially if they feel loved. And she does feel loved, Grant. She knows you care. I do care. The simple words hovered between them, heavy with meaning. Then it'll be okay, Mara concluded, standing. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. The next morning, Grant left early for work after having breakfast with Sadie. The goodbye kiss on her forehead lingered longer than usual. Mara noticed his hesitation, like he was afraid this would be the last time she welcomed him so warmly. Give her time, Mara whispered as she walked him to the door. Come back in the late afternoon, like always. Grant nodded, the lump in his throat visible. After dropping Sadie off at school, Mara spent the day in restless anticipation. She cleaned the apartment, organized supplies, tried to paint, but couldn't focus. At 3, she picked Sadie up. The girl came out chatting about a new game, oblivious to her mother's tension. At home, Mara prepared a special snack, cookies and hot chocolate, Sadie's favorite. They sat at the kitchen table, the girl swinging her legs as she nibbled on a cookie. Sadie, we need to talk about something important. The seriousness in Mara's tone made Sadie stop swinging her legs. Her big brown eyes, so like Grant's, locked onto her mother with curiosity. Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. It's not that. Mara took a breath. It's about Grant. Sadie smiled. He's taking us to the movies on Saturday. He promised. Yes, he did. Mara straightened a napkin, stalling. Sadie, remember when you asked me about your dad, who he was and where he was? The girl nodded, suddenly more serious. Remember I showed you a picture of a man I said had to leave before you were born? Another nod. Sadie seemed to be piecing it together. Grant is that man in the photo, Sadie. Grant is your dad. Silence. The kind that weighs a ton. Sadie remained motionless, the cookie forgotten in her hand, her eyes pinned on Mara, as if trying to decide whether this was a joke. No, she said finally, in a small but firm voice. He can't be. It's true, sweetheart. Grant is your father. Sadie shook her head more forcefully. No, my dad went away before I was born. He doesn't even know me. He didn't know you existed, Sadie. He left before I found out I was pregnant. Then why didn't he ever come back to see? Why didn't he ever want to know about me? Tears filled Sadie's eyes, her voice trembling. Emily has a dad who lives far away, but he calls all the time. Why didn't mine ever call? Mara felt a sharp pain in her chest. How could she explain adult failures and choices to a child? How could she justify years of absence? It's complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, big mistakes. He didn't like me, Sadie asked, tears threatening to spill. Oh, Sadie, Mara knelt by her chair. He didn't know about you, and now that he does, he's here, isn't he? He comes every day, he plays with you, he takes care of you. Sadie was silent, absorbing the information. Then, with the brutal honesty of a child, she asked, He hurt you, didn't he? Is that why you're sad sometimes? The question struck Mara like a blow. How had Sadie, only 5 years, noticed the sadness she tried so hard to hide? It was a long time ago, Sadie, she answered carefully. And people can change. I think Grant has changed. Sadie pushed her chair back and stood up. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Sadie, can I go to my room? Mara nodded, recognizing her daughter's need to process what she'd just learned. Sadie walked slowly to her makeshift bedroom, drawing the curtain that separated her space from the rest of the apartment. The silence that followed was agonizing. Mara heard the occasional sniffle from behind the curtain, but respected her daughter's space. Sometimes, even children need alone time with their thoughts. As evening fell, Mara approached the curtained-off room. Sadie, Grant will be here soon. Do you want me to tell him to come another day? The curtain opened a little, Sadie emerged, red-eyed, clutching a piece of paper. "No," she answered. "I want to talk to him." "Are you sure? You can wait if you're not ready." Sadie shook her head. "I need to." Before Mara could respond, a knock on the door announced Grant's arrival. Sadie quickly returned to her spot behind the curtain while Mara went to let him in. Grant stood in the hallway, a shopping bag in one hand, a bundle of wildflowers in the other, Mara's favorites. His smile faded at the sight of her tense expression. "You told her?" he asked quietly. Mara nodded. "She's processing. She wants to talk to you alone." "Is that a good idea?" "I don't know. Good. But it's what she wants." Grant set the groceries and flowers on the kitchen table, glancing nervously at the drawn curtain. Mara touched his arm lightly. "Be honest with her. That's all I can say." "Always." Mara grabbed her coat. "I'll run to the laundromat and be back in half an hour. That should give you enough time to talk." After Mara left, Grant stood in the living room, unsure. Finally, he approached the curtain and knocked softly on the doorframe. "Sadie, can I come in?" Silence, then a small voice. "You can." Grant carefully pushed aside the curtain. Sadie sat on her bed, hugging the teddy bear he had given her, a folded piece of paper by her side. Her eyes, so like his, were swollen from crying. "Your mum told me you two talked today," Grant began, sitting on the edge of the bed, keeping a respectful distance. Sadie nodded without looking at him. It must have been a big surprise. Another silent nod. "Are you mad at me?" he asked softly. Sadie finally looked at him. "Why did you leave?" That simple question carried the weight of years of absence. Grant felt his heart clench. "Because I made a terrible mistake," he answered honestly. "Because I thought other things were more important." "What things?" "Money, success, status." Grant shook his head. "Things that seemed huge then, but now I see they're nothing compared to what I lost." "Did you know about me when you left?" "No, Sadie. I didn't know you existed. If I had known..." Grant swallowed. "If I had known, I would have stayed, or come back. I never would have missed a single day of your life." Sadie stared at the teddy bear in her arms, thinking, "Emily says dads are forever. Even when they go away, they're still dads." She's right. "But you didn't even know you were my dad until now." Sadie furrowed her brow, wrestling with concepts too big for her age. "Did you like my mom?" The question surprised Grant. "I liked her very much," he answered sincerely. "Your mom is one of the most special people I've ever met." "Then why did you make her sad?" Grant closed his eyes momentarily. How could he explain adult complexities to a 5-year-old heart? "Because I was young and foolish, Sadie. I thought I could find happiness in places and things, not in people." He opened his eyes and looked at her directly. "It was the biggest mistake of my life, and I'll never forgive myself for hurting your mom, for missing so much of your life." Sadie was silent for a long time, absorbing his words. "Are you going away again?" "No," he answered without hesitation. "Never again. Even if you're mad at me now and you have every right to be, I'm going to keep coming back. Every day. Forever. Promise?" Her voice was small, vulnerable. Grant knelt beside the bed at her eye level. "I promise, Sadie. More than that, I'll show you. Day after day." She studied him with the intensity only children possess, as if trying to see straight into his soul. "Mom said you're sorry, so sorry, and that you're trying, with all my might." Sadie picked up the folded paper and held it out to Grant. "I made this for you." Grant carefully unfolded the paper. It was a drawing in crayon, the same 3 stick figures, one large, one medium, one small, holding hands in front of a house. But now, above the largest figure, in wobbly letters, was a single word: Dad. "That's you," Sadie explained, pointing. "Before, I didn't know. Now I do." Grant felt a knot in his throat and tears burn his eyes. "This is the most beautiful picture I've ever received," he said. His voice choked. "You can keep it. It's a note, too." "A note?" "Yes. Turn it over." Sadie flipped the paper. On the back, In a child's handwriting, it read, "I love you, Dad." It was too much for Grant. The tears he had tried to hold back fell freely. He didn't try to hide them. There was no shame in crying over something so precious. "I love you too, Sadie, more than I can say." She watched his tears with fascination. "Are you crying because you're sad?" "No." Grant smiled through his tears. "I'm crying because I'm happy. Very, very happy." Sadie considered this for a moment, then opened her arms to him, a silent offer, an invitation to forgive, which Grant wasn't sure he deserved, but he accepted with immeasurable gratitude. He hugged her gently, as though holding the most fragile treasure. He smelled her childlike shampoo and crayons, felt the warmth of unconditional trust. "You know something," Sadie whispered in his ear. "I always wanted a dad." "I always wanted a daughter," Grant replied, pulling back to look into her eyes. "I just didn't know it until I met you." When Mara returned, she found them sitting on the floor of Sadie's small space, surrounded by drawings. Sadie was excitedly explaining each one, while Grant listened with rapt attention, as if every word were precious. Spotting Mara, Sadie ran over. "Mom!" I told Grant about the play at school." That brief hesitation was almost imperceptible, the dad still not entirely natural on her tongue, but it was there, waiting to emerge. "That's great, honey." Mara stroked her daughter's hair, exchanging a look with Grant over Sadie's head. In that look was a silent question. Grant answered with a slight nod and a calm smile. Yes, they had talked. Yes, something had been repaired, not completely, but enough for a new beginning. Later, while Sadie bathed, Grant showed Mara the drawing. "My first note," he said, voice thick with emotion. Mara touched the paper gently, her eyes softening as she read the childlike words. "She has a big heart," she commented, "like her mom." Their eyes met, and for a moment, something from the past flickered, a memory of simpler times, of feelings not yet complicated by absence and hurt. That night, when Grant read Sadie her bedtime story, he felt a subtle shift. He was no longer just Grant reading to her. He was a father reading to his daughter. The invisible bond, fragile but real, had formed. A new beginning born from truth and the kind of forgiveness only a child can give so freely. After Sadie fell asleep, he lingered, watching her. The drawing, his first dad note, was folded carefully in his pocket, a tangible reminder of the miracle that had happened that afternoon, a miracle called a second chance. Autumn gave way to winter, and winter began to yield to spring. The changes were not just in the weather, but in the little family taking shape in Acacia Grove. Grant's daily visits had become something more, a constant presence, a pillar, a certainty. On Tuesday and Thursday mornings, he was the one who made breakfast, animal-shaped pancakes for Sadie, strong coffee for Mara. Sadie would already be at the table, swinging her legs, counting down the minutes to see which creature would appear on her plate that day. "An elephant," she exclaimed on a particularly cold morning, as Grant flipped the pancake before serving it. "With chocolate edges just the way you like," he replied, placing the plate in front of her. Mara watched from the bedroom door, still fixing her hair for the day. It was almost surreal, a scene of domestic normalcy. The man who had once abandoned everything was now serving pancakes in her kitchen, as if he'd never left, as if he'd always been part of the picture. "Got one for me?" she asked, stepping into the kitchen. Grant smiled, that smile that could still warm her inside, despite her best efforts to resist. "Of course. Yours is a butterfly." Her pancake had uneven wings, but the care behind it was evident. Mara thanked him with a nod, sitting next to her daughter. Shared meals, once a rare luxury, had become part of their routine, small moments that built something new among them. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons, Grant picked Sadie up from school. The other parents knew him now, waved, included him in conversations about school events and birthday parties. Sadie's dad, they called him. He never corrected them or explained those missing years. He accepted the title with a mix of pride and humility, like someone receiving a gift he wasn't sure he deserved, but was determined to honor. At home, the pile of children's books grew every week. Grant read to Sadie before bed, doing different voices for each character, making her giggle at his exaggerated performances. Mara would listen from the kitchen, smiling secretly at her daughter's laughter. "Just one more, Dad, please," Sadie would plead each time the story ended. Dad now rolled off her tongue naturally, as if it had always been there. The first few times Sadie said it, Grant grew visibly emotional. Now it was simply who he was, her father. One afternoon in March, Grant arrived with news that would change their dynamics. "I found a school," he announced during dinner. "The Aurora Institute. It's public but has a special arts program." Mara paused mid-bite. "A school? For Sadie?" "Yes, it's only about 10 minutes away by car. They have openings for the next semester." Grant looked at Sadie, who was listening attentively. "They offer painting classes twice a week." The girl's eyes lit up. "Like what Mom does?" "Exactly. I thought you'd like it." Mara set her fork down. "Grant, I'm not sure we can—" "I already took care of everything," he replied softly. "Registration, materials, uniforms. I just need your authorization." There was a time Mara would have rejected that outright, seeing it as an intrusion or control. But now, after months of seeing Grant's consistent dedication, she just nodded. "We can visit first, see if Sadie likes it." "Of course, I set up a tour for tomorrow, if that's okay." The school visit was a success. Sadie loved the art room, the green spaces, and the bright children's library. When the principal asked if she'd like to study there, the girl looked at both her parents, not just Mara, as she would have before, but at both, seeking joint approval. "Can I, Mom? Can I, Dad?" Grant and Mara exchanged a glance. A silent understanding passed between them, a decision shared without words. "Yes," they answered together. In the following weeks, Grant took charge of preparations. He bought all the school supplies, not just the basics, but everything on the list. Professional grade-colored pencils, sturdy notebooks, a durable rolling backpack so Sadie wouldn't strain her back. "It's too much," Mara commented when she saw everything laid out on the table. "I want her to have the best," Grant simply replied. "The best isn't always the most expensive, Grant." He smiled, recognizing the truth in her words. "You're right. But in this case, I want her to have good tools to develop her talent. The kind you should have had." The remark caught Mara off guard. "I had enough." "No, you didn't. And look what you created anyway." Grant gestured at the paintings on the walls. "Imagine what you could have done with the right support." Something in his sincere admiration moved Mara. It wasn't pity or guilt. It was genuine respect. On the first day of school, the three of them went together. Sadie held one parent's hand in each of hers, skipping with excitement. Her new uniform, her hair carefully done in 2 braids, Grant had learned to make after countless failed attempts and tutorial videos. "I'm nervous," Sadie admitted when they reached the school gate. Grant knelt to meet her eyes. "Don't know what my dad used to say when I was nervous about something new." Sadie shook her head, curious. He said, "Courage doesn't mean not being afraid. It means feeling afraid and doing it anyway. And you, Sadie Jensen, are the bravest person I know." The girl smiled, hugging him tight before running inside, where a teacher awaited. Mara and Grant stood side by side, watching until she disappeared into the school. "You never told me that about your dad," Mara commented as they walked back to the car. "There are a lot of things I never told you," Grant replied. "Things I want to share now, if you'd like to hear." There was a pause, charged with possibilities. "I'd like that," Mara said finally. It was the beginning of something new, not a return to the past, but a rediscovery. Walks in the park while Sadie was in school, talks about books and movies over dinner, shared memories revisited without the sharp pain of before. Grant began spending more nights on the apartment sofa, at first when the weather was bad, then on nights he stayed late helping Sadie with homework. Her pillow and blanket took up permanent residence in the living room closet. In April, Mara started looking for work again. Her savings were running low, and although Grant helped with Sadie's expenses, she needed to keep her independence. "I have an interview tomorrow," she announced one evening as they did the dishes together. "At a gallery downtown." "Sullivan Gallery?" Grant asked, surprised. It was one of the most prestigious galleries in the city. Yeah, they're looking for someone for their educational department to work with children and teach basic techniques. That's perfect for you. If I get it. Competition is stiff. Grant watched her with admiration for the determination that had always been part of her, even in the worst times. I can take care of Sadie tomorrow if you need. That would be great. The interview's at 3. The next day, Mara dressed carefully in a simple suit she saved for special occasions. She put her hair in a neat bun. When she stepped out of the bedroom, she found Grant and Sadie on the floor, focused on a board game. "How do I look?" she asked anxiously. Both looked up in unison, identical expressions of admiration on their faces. "Beautiful," Grant said, with a sincerity that made Mara's cheeks flush slightly. "The prettiest," Sadie added, standing to hug her mom. "Good luck, Mom." When Mara returned hours later, she found the house clean, dinner ready, and Sadie's homework done. Grant had reorganized her tiny studio, arranging the paints by color, cleaning the brushes, and clearing more workspace. "How was it?" he asked, handing her a glass of wine he'd bought for the occasion. "I think it went well," Mara smiled, allowing herself a moment of optimism. "The director liked my work, said I have a fresh perspective." "Of course she liked it. You're talented, Mara. You always have been." They clinked glasses, a small celebration of possibility. 2 days later, the gallery called. The job was hers. Grant prepared a special dinner to celebrate. Nothing fancy. He'd learned Mara valued effort over cost, but thoughtfully planned. Her favorite dish, flowers in season, and even a small gift, a set of professional brushes she had often admired but never bought. "For your personal projects," he said when she opened it. "For when you're not teaching others." Sadie made a congratulatory card covered in colorful drawings with the words, "Mommy Gallery Artist," scrawled in big letters. During dinner, laughing at Sadie's jokes and sharing their future plans, Mara felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: completeness, as if the pieces of a puzzle were finally snapping into place. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. It wasn't a conventional family. They didn't follow the script society expected, but in the little moments, animal-shaped pancakes, bedtime stories, clumsy braids, shared dinners, they were building something real, a place to stay, a place to belong, a place to be who they truly were, together. And for Mara, who had carried the weight of solitude for so long, this new harmony felt like finally breathing after years underwater. Grant noticed the change in her. He saw it in her more frequent smiles, in the way she sometimes touched his arm during a conversation, as if to confirm he was really there. He saw it in how she now planned the future, naturally including him. "Maybe next summer we can go to the beach," she mentioned one night while organizing Sadie's schoolwork. "She's never seen the ocean." "She'll love it," Grant replied, feeling his heart flutter at the word "we." Not just Sadie and I, but all of them together. Small signs of acceptance, renewed trust, a family forming not out of obligation or guilt, but through daily choice. A choice Grant made every morning upon waking, and every night as he left with the promise to return the next day. A choice that finally felt right. Summer arrived, bringing long days and mild nights. The modest apartment in Acacia Grove had changed, not structurally, but in essence. The windows stayed open longer, letting in not just the breeze but also laughter and conversation. 6 months had passed since Mara started working at Sullivan Gallery. Her talent as an educator surprised even herself. The kids loved her, the parents respected her, and management was already discussing expanding her role to include curating exhibits for new artists. For the first time in years, the bills were paid on time. The kitchen cupboards, once nearly empty, stayed stocked for weeks. And in one corner of the living room, a new canvas awaited. This time, not a commission, but a personal project Mara finally felt confident enough to start. "What are you going to paint on it?" Grant asked one night while they prepared dinner. Mara smiled, a light, unburdened smile. "Us, a scene from the park last Sunday. When Sadie rolled around in the grass and got all green. Exactly. That moment, the light was perfect, and you two laughing." She paused, searching for words. "It felt like everything was in the right place, you know?" Grant did know. That afternoon in the park had been one of those rare, perfect moments, lying on the grass while Sadie tried to teach him the names of the clouds, with Mara watching them, smiling. There was nothing extraordinary about it, and perhaps that was why it was so special. "That'll be your first solo exhibition?" he teased. More statement than question. Mara gave him a surprised look. "I'm not ready for that. You are, more than you think." The conversation was interrupted by Sadie rushing into the kitchen, waving a brightly colored paper. "Look what we made at school today. These are invitations for my birthday." The paper showed drawings of balloons and a cake, with Sadie's birthday in big, colorful letters. "It's beautiful, honey," Mara praised, taking the invitation. "But your birthday's 3 weeks away." "The teacher said we need to plan early," Sadie explained seriously. "I want a party with all my friends from school." Grant and Mara exchanged glances. Kids' parties meant expenses, something that still weighed on the family budget. "We can do something special," Grant suggested. "It doesn't have to be big to be unforgettable." "Promise?" Sadie asked, her eyes locked on his. "I promise, princess." Grant knelt to her level. "After all, it's not every day you turn 6. Over the next few weeks, birthday preparations took center stage during their dinners. Unlike the lavish parties Grant had seen in his old social circles, this one would be simple. A picnic in the park, traditional games, a homemade cake. "No clowns," Sadie insisted. "Emma's scared of them." "No clowns," Grant agreed, adding it to the list. "How about face painting? I can ask a friend from the gallery to come," Mara offered. On the morning of Sadie's birthday, the sky was clear and blue, as if gift-wrapped for her. Grant arrived early, loaded with decorations and supplies to set up a corner of the park. Mara was already up, putting the finishing touches on a chocolate cake, Sadie's favorite. "She's still asleep?" Grant asked when he walked in. "Out like a light. I kept checking all night, expecting her to wake up from excitement." Grant grinned. "I remember the night before my 7th birthday. I didn't sleep a wink. I was convinced my dad would bring me a puppy." "Did he?" "No. He brought a used bike he'd restored. At first I was disappointed, but then it was the best gift I've ever gotten. He spent weeks working on it after his shifts." Mara observed him curiously. "You rarely talk about your dad." "He was a man of few words, but many actions." Grant paused as though considering something. "I think I understand him better now." A noise in Sadie's room interrupted them. Soon, hurried footsteps, and the birthday girl appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in pajamas, hair messy, eyes bright with anticipation. "It's today," she squealed, jumping into Grant's arms. "Happy birthday, princess," he murmured, hugging her tight. The day unfolded with the magic only a child's birthday can hold. A small group of school friends ran around the park, laughing, playing games like tag and hide and seek. Parents chatted and shared stories, welcoming Grant and Mara into their circle without question or judgment. When it was time for the cake, Sadie beamed in the center of the crowd, 6 candles flickering in her eyes while everyone sang. Grant felt a lump in his throat. His first birthday with her, the first of many he promised himself. "Make a wish," Mara whispered when the song ended. Sadie squeezed her eyes shut, concentrating, then blew out all the candles at once. Applause and cheers echoed through the park. Later, as the sun began to set and the other families had gone, the 3 of them remained on a park bench, sharing the last slices of cake. Sadie sat between them, leaning against Grant, while Mara wiped the remaining face paint from her cheeks. "It was the best birthday in the world," Sadie declared, sleepy after a day full of activity. "Better than last year?" Mara asked. Sadie nodded. "Last year it was just you and me, Mum. Now I have both of you." The simple statement hit both Grant and Mara like a gentle but profound truth. Incomplete before, now whole. "We're a family, aren't we?" Sadie asked, looking first at Mara, then at Grant. Silence hung in the air. The question carried a wealth of meaning. "Yes," Mara finally answered softly. "We're a family. A different kind of family," Grant added, "but a real one." Sadie seemed satisfied with that response. Nestling between them, she soon dozed off, exhausted from the day's excitement. Over her head, Grant and Mara exchanged a look. No more words were needed. The journey they had taken, from separation to reunion, from mistrust to acceptance, from emptiness to fullness, was etched into their faces and hearts. It wasn't the life Grant had imagined for himself when he left that working-class neighborhood years ago, chasing success and wealth. There were no mansions, no luxury cars, no enormous bank accounts, but there was something infinitely more valuable: the soft breathing of Sadie, asleep between her parents. The look in Mara's eyes, no longer resentful, but calmly accepting. The warmth of belonging that no material possession could ever buy. Sitting on that park bench, surrounded by the remnants of a simple party, they formed a picture no painting of Mara's could fully capture. A portrait of a family rebuilt from the ashes of abandonment and regret. An imperfect family with scars and tough histories. A family that had learned the hard way that lost time can't be reclaimed, but new moments can be created. A family that discovered redemption doesn't come in grand gestures, but in the consistency of small acts of love. "Shall we go home?" Grant asked softly, stroking Sadie's hair. Home. The word now had a new meaning. Mara nodded, a gentle smile on her lips. "Let's go home." Together, they rose carefully so as not to wake Sadie. Grant lifted her in his arms, her slight weight resting against his chest. Side by side, they walked slowly through the dimming park, leaving behind deflated balloons and empty wrappers, but carrying with them the knowledge that finally, after so many detours and hurts, they had found their place. A place where luxury didn't matter, but presence did. A place where past mistakes didn't dictate the future. A place where three imperfect hearts formed something whole, a home. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.